Hello there and welcome to another edition of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipp will be joined by Robin Washut here after opening headlines as we set the stage, Sipp, for what's going to be a massive Black Friday game in Iowa City. But before we get into that, Husker Online Show brought to you by StayHome.Care. They are there for you to help you with the loved ones in your life get accessible and personalized in-person care in the comfort of your own home, whether it's helping with daily tasks like cleaning, laundry, meal preparation, providing companionship, offering medication reminders, or assisting with personal care and errands. They're there to make life easier. They serve Lincoln, Omaha, and all of Nebraska. StayHome.Care is proud to announce they received the prestigious Top Healthcare Service Award for the second year in a row. To learn more, go to StayHome.Care. It's .care, not .com, or call them at 402-205-2233. Our heart is with you because we put our heart into everything we do. StayHome.Care. Thanks for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. But let's get into it because you always say this, surprise me once. Nebraska just surprised me. Well, they did surprise you. They surprised everybody with a 44-25 drubbing of Wisconsin. Now they go out to Iowa City for, I know they're an underdog, but this game really sets up well for Nebraska to change just the tune of this entire season.
Yeah, and going back to the surprise, I've told you I had an editor, Todd Hendricks, the great Todd Hendricks, sports editor, used to say to me about my columns, Sipple, surprise me with something. Doesn't always have to be the same standard tripe. Surprise, Sean, 44 points. That's a surprise. Nobody picked 44. Did anybody in our picks pick 44? No.
Well,
44?
Think about, we all picked Nebraska. But there were all the local newspapers, Omaha and Lincoln, they all picked Wisconsin to win the game.
But even those that of us that picked Nebraska, we did not pick 44.
Because the nature of Nebraska's offense. They hadn't scored that way. And right. Alabama put 42 in hot weather in Madison. Iowa put 42 on them. But nobody, Oregon, 16 points to put 44 points.
It's great. It is. And Matt Rule kind of talked today about, you heard him today, Matt Rule on Monday, actually, was saying this kind of shows this win, not just the offense. It shows that we can do it. And I would say that applies to the offense more. It tells the offense you can score 44 guys and probably 50. They could have got 50, not a stretch.
And what I liked about Dana Holgorsen is they went 6 straight possessions with points from the late second quarter all the way until the final possession where they were just trying to run clock. They had 5 scoring drives that were 8 yards or 8 plays or longer, and 5 drives that went 67 yards or longer. So this was not a fluke.
No,
they executed the best we had seen all year against a defense the week before that only allowed 16 points to Oregon.
Allow me to nitpick. Still didn't get a lot of big plays in the passing game, right?
8 plays of 15 plus yards.
That's pretty good. But how many over 20?
Not a lot over 20.
Right, 1 or 2.
You had a lot of underneath 15 to 20-yard throws.
Which is good. That qualifies as down the field. You'd still like to see the big play a little bit more, right? But no, I'm not complaining. That's called nitpicking, not complaining. This was a good offensive performance. Another good offensive performance by the line. The line, particularly in pass pro, if you look at our Pro Football Focus numbers, really strong in pass pro. Not as strong in run blocking. In fact, Emmett Johnson had 87 of his 113 yards after contact.
He made 9 tacklers miss.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, Wisconsin missed 18 tackles in the game.
Whoa, that is a number.
Yeah, they were playing on skates.
Yeah,
and give Nebraska credit. I think some of the window dressings and movements Nebraska did got Wisconsin off balance, and they weren't set for what Dana brought at them or what they called in those situations. So
they were on skates. You're right. That's usually what happens when you're missing a lot of tackles, unsure of yourself.
And now we're talking bowl games, which is exciting. And for Nebraska, I've done a lot of talking, and we're putting together a bowl trip with Husker Online. We'll have more on this, but we'll have direct flights, hotels, transportation, game ticket, everything all set up And we're working with a great company, EB Sports, that's going to put this together with us. But right now it looks like two things. If they win this game at Iowa, Tampa looks likely.
Tampa is the what bowl?
The ReliaQuest Bowl, formerly known as the Outback Bowl, which I'm disappointed it's not the Outback Bowl because they used to pass out bloomin' onions in the press box.
Okay.
Imagine that sight.
It sounds dangerous.
I shared a bloomin' onion with you twice last year.
They were freshly cooked.
I don't know. In Kansas City Outback Steakhouse.
Right. I don't know that these would be freshly cooked. But anyway, it's the ReliaQuest Bowl. Okay. Then give me another scenario.
Now, if they lose
to Iowa,
and even if they win, Music City Bowl and Nashville's the other one. I mean, I can say if I were like putting Vegas odds,
okay,
those are overwhelmingly the top two options for Nebraska bowl game destination. So it is exciting because I do think those are going to be well-traveled games for Nebraska when you talk about, fans making these trips and getting out on the bowl game. And that's what you want. And Nebraska will be as attractive of a 6-7 win bowl team as there's ever been.
Yep. Nobody cares, but I would say I'd like to go to Tampa because my brother Martin, God bless him, and his family.
I like Tampa too.
Yeah, Marty and his large family live in Tallahassee, which is not very far. It's not very far.
Yeah, I think the later in Phoenix was talked about, but they're not going to fall down to Phoenix. Phoenix picks further down the picks.
The Guaranteed Rate Bowl,
and that's in the Diamondbacks Chase Field.
Okay,
that would be December 26th. I think that's kind of a trip killer.
Give me some dates on Nashville and Tampa.
December 30th, Nashville, December 31st, Tampa.
Okay.
So you get your Christmas, you get your prime rib, which anyone knows me, I'm a big make the Christmas prime rib guy.
And then we go right after Christmas.
Then we'd go right after Christmas out to whatever bowl destination. Probably leave the 26th wherever we go.
Okay. Perfect. So that's the setup. It sounds kind of cut and dried a little bit. We're not going to New York and we're not going to Detroit.
Yeah, I think Michigan's going to New York. I mean, I'm pretty confident on that.
And there's no way Detroit would get Nebraska.
No. That's the last pick.
Yeah.
Like Illinois is the only one that you can say today is in line to go ahead of Nebraska and Iowa. They're going to go to Orlando. After that, if Nebraska beats Iowa, it will be a mash of 6 and 7 win teams. There will be no 8 or 9 win teams other than Illinois. And then the 4 playoff teams. So it's exciting because we haven't really been able to talk about bowl games and bowl trips.
Well, that stuff
for a long time.
Yeah, it'll be fun to cover a bowl again. Maybe fun to go in a Starbucks and not be able to hear and be huddled up in a booth and writing a story about Emmett Johnson or whatever.
Well, and the number of Nebraska fans that travel.
Yeah.
It's going to be exciting because I do think especially if they beat Iowa, everybody and their mother is going to go on this bowl trip. It will be like, everybody's going to get out of the state and they're going to go to this bowl game.
Their mother and their stepmother probably. So that'll be fun. I'm glad we're having Sean. Think about the conversation we're having right now compared to the one that we would have been having if Nebraska would have lost to Wisconsin.
Well, just having the practices and the early enrollees are allowed to come in and if it sets up right, their graduation, they can come in for bowl practice.
And that's a number you expect to be about.
There's 13 of the 20 are early enrollees. Now,
it's a big number.
Will they all be? There's a lot of things like Matt Rule said this week. He doesn't really know all the details and parameters. So it's not a slam dunk that all 13 would be here, but I think you'll get some. So, all right. Well, Robin Washut is back from the
stadium. We got to get Rob on. He was writing.
He's going to join us as we continue the show. We'll talk offensive storylines heading into Iowa. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washut now joining us here in the show as we talk offensive storylines. But before we get to that, Husker Online Show again brought to you by StayHome.Care. They're there for you to help the loved ones in your life with everything. And it's never too easy or early to call StayHome.Care to learn more about their services. They help you with all the simple day-to-day things that you might need for that loved one in your life. We're also brought to you by Ellerbrock-Norris. They've been helping Nebraska business owners protect their purpose for over 120 years with risk management solutions built for local business. Ellerbrock-Norris partners with you on commercial insurance, group benefits, business exit planning, safety, and more. Start thinking long-term with your business and create a risk management strategy to protect it. Are your employee benefit costs going through the roof? Talk to Ellerbrock. Are workplace injuries skyrocketing your workers' compensation costs? Talk to Ellerbrock. Hoping to retire in the next 10 years and sell the business to key family, employees, or even a friendly competitor? talk to Ellerbrock. Ellerbrock-Norris is helping you protect your purpose, whether it's your business or the employees in it, or your life outside of work and your future retirement goals. Head to ellerbrocknorris.com/HuskerOnline today to get your free risk evaluation. Thanks again to Ellerbrock-Norris for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online show. Okay, let's talk offensive storylines going into this game. And we hit on Dana Holgorsen a little bit in the open, but I want to hit on Emmett Johnson because all of a sudden it feels like Nebraska might have a running back, but we've got ahead of ourselves at times this year. But there's two things. Emmett Johnson is the first 100-yard running back of the season, and Dante Dowdell now has 11 rushing touchdowns on the year.
They have a pretty defined plan, it looks like, that makes sense. As I've been telling you guys, Coach Sipple has been telling you guys all season, Dowdell is a really good inside the 5. I mean, that's where you go with the ball, right? You see the way he flings himself into the end zone, how he fights to get in the end zone, sees seams and holes down there, and just is so strong-willed and so strong. But Emmett, I don't know. I just keep giving Corey Cooper credit. Or excuse me, Sean, Corey Campbell. Corey Campbell, not Corey Cooper. Corey Campbell and the strength staff, because his legs are so live. How do his legs look this live 11 games in?
Well, because they rotate so much all year at running back.
That's a good point.
So maybe it'd be different if he'd been the number 1 all year long, but he hasn't. And now at the end of the year, he's as fresh as probably any back in the conference right now. I mean, he looked like he had an extra bounce to him.
He did.
With some of those cuts he made and his ability to run through tackles. Yep. How long have we been waiting for Nebraska back to break a tackle? And to be able to just make a play, a one-on-one play.
And Ramir Johnson being out too has helped his reps.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Because they kind of were splitting that third down back role.
Yep.
And Dowdell's role is fairly defined. I mean, 75% of the time he's in for a run play.
Right. And it's very apparent when you look at the snaps and the plays, the snaps versus the plays that he runs. You're right, Sean. So now they got some definition there. What about Ramir coming back, though? Is that happening?
I don't think we'll see him at Iowa play a big role. I think more the bowl game, if I'm being realistic. What do you think, Rob?
It's hard to say just because he wasn't even in the conversation last week to return. Like he just was presumed out. And so missed 2 straight games. And now you're talking about a short week. Is that going to be enough? And do they want to go back to that 3-headed attack? They kind of got something going right now.
Seems
with
like
that 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
With Emmett and Dowdell. So if you don't have to force them back, I don't know why you would.
And I think we have to mention the offensive line, which has had 2 straight very strong performances. I'd say for sure strong performances. The coaches were unified in the refrain of them having their best game against USC. And then they came back strong in this game, particularly in pass pro. If you look at the Pro Football Focus grades, really strong pass pro.
Only 4 hurries, no QB hits, no sacks allowed by the line.
Good. That's good. Now they'll get a bigger test against Iowa. Iowa's a good pass rush team.
Mm-hmm.
Markedly better than Wisconsin.
What I like about this game, though, is how Iowa defends. They play a zone, a drop back.
Exclusively zone almost.
Phil Parker has played the same defense for 20 years.
They will. I got to bite my tongue sometimes. They're not exclusive zone, but they're mostly zone.
Quarters, yeah.
They'll play some. They'll match up a little bit, but it's zone is prevalent. That's prevalent. So it is a good matchup.
I just think there's a lot there that sets up for Nebraska because Dylan Raiola and this offense have been at their best when they play zone defenses. And you just wonder. And then Iowa, one of their top defensive backs, is either injured or opted out. So they're not going to be as strong on the back end, which I think is an advantage as long as they can protect Dylan Raiola.
Mm-hmm. The weather is going to be interesting because it's going to be the coldest game by far Dylan Raiola has probably ever played in. And how's he going to just physically respond to that if he does get knocked around a little bit? The hits hurt more when it's 19 degrees out or whatever it's going to be Saturday night or Friday night in Iowa City. So that's just an element we don't know, but another step in his development and something he better get used to playing.
Oh, yeah. Here's the deal, Rob. I agree with you, except that you have to add this. I love this about Rule. He talked about it today, Monday. 95% of their practices are outdoors. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a contrast to some coaches we've had here. Sean, wouldn't you say they were always indoors almost?
Pelini.
95%. Sean, I mean, Rob, eases my concerns about that.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but just Dylan's bloodlines ease my concern. His dad was a Detroit Lion, played in the NFL. They're Colts, not gonna. Look at it. Who his uncle is. He'll be fine. The cold kind of affects. If it's windy, it affects things quite a bit.
Well, I thought it was notable too that Rule said that when they do practice outside, they go out of their way to like embrace elements, like with the way that with those outdoor practice fields are positioned, they get like 35 mile an hour
throw it into
wind gusts that come across the stadium, and so they throw into it. So
go both directions.
Yeah, anything that they see on Friday night, they will have at least been somewhat prepared.
And I will tell you this: if I were a head coach in this world, I would have big quarterbacks that can drive it downfield in this league. I wouldn't have smaller quarterbacks. I wouldn't. I'd recruit 6'2", 230 guys that can drive the ball into the wind.
Your football team consists of big 6'4", 6'5" wide receivers.
It does.
Big quarterbacks,
big running backs,
and a big running back.
Yeah, it does. That's how that would be my style.
Just big people.
Yeah, I'd want, especially in this league. I'm not joking around. That's what I want. I want guys that trot out there 6'2" and above. That doesn't mean Wan'Dale Robinson comes along. We can recruit him, but he's the anomaly.
Ja'Cory Barney.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's
Big Ten freshman of the week, by the way.
He can play.
I think as this
he can play.
This relationship with him and Dana Holgorsen continues, he's going to get going even more.
You know what stood out when Dana first was talking to him, like a couple weeks ago, his first press conference, whatever, he mentioned Barney and was talking about just the kind of how the receivers have been underperforming. He said, well, Barney's not the biggest guy out there, but he's tough.
Tough kid.
He's tough.
Yeah.
If you're tough, you can play for Dana Holgorsen.
Oh, he's tough too, isn't he?
One other thing I want to get in this segment, Thomas Fedoni.
Yeah.
Only played 3 snaps after a false start penalty. Now, there was a receiver as well. Did he mention a receiver got benched for
Lloyd?
Isaiah Garcia?
Lloyd didn't play.
Yeah, Lloyd didn't play.
Lloyd didn't play a snap.
And Garcia played his first offensive snaps of the season.
Lloyd didn't come in, so he didn't have an opportunity to get benched once the game started.
Did Bullock get benched?
I don't know.
No, Bullock played.
But did he lose his reps as the game? I mean, for Isaiah Garcia Castaneda took somebody's snap.
Mm-hmm. This is an execution conversation according to rule. If you don't execute with Holgorsen, you're out.
Yeah,
you might get pulled.
Hey, he pointed to Bonner, who had that breakout game against USC. Then he fumbles against Wisconsin, hardly sees the field.
That's
after that.
who it was.
Bonner.
I think Bonner was pulled
after the fumble.
Yeah, so Bonner only played 15 snaps. Garcia Castaneda played 13.
There you go.
So that's who.
See, some people are going to wonder, guys, like, why weren't they doing this before? Rule, I think his answer essentially was Holgorsen has a little different stature in the coaching world than anybody on Nebraska staff except for Rule. And he can enforce, maybe his voice is a little bit different, right? Because of who he is. And that means something. I'll write about it tomorrow, but I mean, I'm paraphrasing Rule, but a lot of it's just that. Dana Holgorsen carries some clout that Satterfield, frankly, doesn't. And that's not a knock on Satterfield, but look what Holgersen's done.
It's just the reality.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk defensive storylines. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Back here on the Husker Online Show, Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Watchett talking defensive storylines for Nebraska heading out to Iowa. But before we get to that, again, we're brought to you by our title sponsor, StayHome.Care. It's never too early to call StayHome.Care to learn more about the services they offer. They're there to help you with the loved ones in your life. Call them at 402-205-2233 to learn more about just the different things they might have and find out for the future. May not be now, might be a year from now you need their services, but you want to know what they are. We're also brought to you by Bauer Underground. They've been serving as local support for contractors and utility companies within the state of Nebraska. Bauer gives 100% to assure quality control for their customers, and they have excellent management skills to supervise each and every job they contract for. The company and its employees are accustomed to deadline pressure on construction jobs, and they take tremendous pride in meeting the deadline requirements while maintaining excellent workmanship on each job. Strategy at the heart of what they do for more than 25 years. Their reputation has been built on quality workmanship, on-time job completion, hiring, retaining, and quality personnel, utilizing the latest earth-moving techniques, and maintaining safety for their customers and employees. Learn more about Bauer. Check them out at BauerUnderground.com. They have offices in Lincoln, Omaha, Kearney, and Norfolk. Thanks again to Bauer for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. Let's get in the defense, because for Nebraska, it's pretty simple what their job is going to be this week. Iowa's going to be starting a third-string walk-on quarterback, Jackson Stratton, who was once a linebacker.
Wow.
His backup in this game is wearing a hard cast on his non-throwing arm. Can't even take snaps under center. But what will they do? They'll hand the ball off to the best running back in the Big Ten, Caleb Johnson.
That's what they'll do, and they'll run outside zone. Sometimes they'll go outside. Sometimes they'll cut it up, and it'll look really good because they do it about as well as anybody. I've watched Iowa beat Nebraska with outside zone so many times. It's not that it sounds a lot easier to defend than it is. Johnson has tailed off a little bit in this month, right?
Longest run of the month is 16 yards.
He's a big
He had
hawk.
100 yards at halftime last week.
That's not big, not tailing off a ton.
But he had 30 some carries in the game. He had
35.
So
they'll hammer. Yeah, you're right. They'll hammer away with him. I'd like to overthink this because I do overthink just about everything, but I don't think that that's what they're going to do. Caleb Johnson left, Caleb Johnson right, Caleb Johnson up the middle. And this is why I think it's a good matchup, Rob. I mean, Nebraska, their defense is since Ohio State hasn't been that good, right?
They've been timely good, like with fourth down stops.
They're always good in short yardage, most of the time.
Yeah. So, but compared to what like their peak has been, it's been nowhere near that. Like they've shown flashes of being exceptionally better than what we've seen, but they've been good enough. And maybe the biggest weakness right now, at least over the last couple of weeks, has been their secondary.
Right.
Well, who's not going to challenge their secondary hardly
Probably
whatsoever?
not.
At least you wouldn't think.
No, probably not.
They
much.
made Braden Locke look like All-American, but they have a tendency to do that. But I don't know if that's going to be the case this week because Wisconsin or Iowa doesn't have Wisconsin's receivers, even with Pauling being out. And they're working with the guy, like you said, Sean was playing linebacker not too long ago.
They converted 5 first downs through the air last week. So not a lot of passing. Iowa against Maryland was 9 of 11 on throws 9 yards or less, like short throws. And that's where 4 of their first downs were. So you know what they're going to do. When they pass, it's just going to be kind of a quick dump out to a tight end or a running back. It's not going to be anything down the field. Now, he threw 2 20-plus yard balls down the field. Both were incompletions.
And here's the deal, guys. Here's the deal. Adding on to this conversation, Matt Rule said something very smart on Monday. It's like the game doesn't start for Iowa until the second half.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be really patient with whatever. They'll be patient. And that's a great way to put it with Iowa. It's like the game starts at halftime.
Yeah, they're one of those teams that just wait for you to make a mistake and then they pounce.
Yeah, and they will.
Special teams with defensive turnovers, with
they'll
pop
go after
plays.
a punt.
Yeah. It's sort of annoying, but I can just hear Ferentz saying in the halftime locker room, just wait, Nebraska will make a mistake. Don't worry. They'll make some mistakes. Just be ready to pounce.
Look at the series and how the last 10 matchups have gone. It's usually that's what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and let's be fair to Nebraska. That happens to a lot of teams against Iowa.
True.
They kind of lull you into this game that you don't want to be in and then pounce.
They force you off the road and make you drive in the mud. And then you just
and you
at
have
that
like
point you're just like,
you have a Camry, and it's just not working, right? It's just not good.
Now, can Dylan Raiola stay on the road? I mean, if Dylan Raiola in this game
Good question.
is able to do more, I mean, it puts pressure because if you can get up on Iowa, they're not built to come from behind with Jackson Stratton.
No, they're not, but they're patient. So I don't know.
And they will, mark my word, try to block a punt, if not multiple. I mean, that's going to be part of their recipe to win this game.
Got to be really strong on special teams. Nebraska has to be strong across the board. Pretty much strong across the board against Wisconsin. Again, Rule talked on Monday. Special teams is quietly sort of rounded into form. You're seeing John Hull just hammer field goals. I mean, he hammers them. You know, they're not sneaking through. Bruscini is a bona fide NFL punter. It's pretty evident at this point. The kick, they got as Matt pointed out, huge kickoff return to start the Wisconsin game, kind of a tone setter. They've been okay in coverage most of the time, a little leaky on kickoff coverage against Wisconsin, but generally, really, the special teams have come a long way.
But yeah, just look at where they were not too long ago. Like that Purdue game, they could barely even get a punt off. They had field goals blocked, multiple field goals
They were
blocked.
catastrophe.
I mean, it was like one of the most disastrous special teams performances you're ever going to see. Now look at them. They were outside of a couple big kickoff returns or a couple good kickoff returns with Wisconsin. They were excellent across the board.
And another thing to watch, Riley Van Poppel, they've been sitting
Okay.
on that fourth game.
Okay.
The last time he played was Rutgers, and they
Okay.
created this heavy package
Uh-huh.
to match up with Rutgers' run game. You have to think we'll see something similar again, knowing that fourth game is available now for Riley Van Poppel, and a game
Interesting.
where you know Iowa's going to run it.
Interesting. So you think we'll see 44?
Yeah, I think you'll see Nebraska kind of play with more armor out there. They'll play heavier.
Rob, tell me he's 44.
Hmm?
Yeah, that's a good. I would hope they would do that because he's fresh, right?
This is not a James Williams game.
Well,
I mean,
not necessarily. No, he only played 12 snaps the other day too.
this is going to be a man's game. This is going to be a heavy.
Well,
duty
James is a
game.
man,
a run stopping game,
right?
Like
Yeah, James is all
like
right.
Jamari Butler, Nash Hutmacher, Ty Robinson, probably Riley Van Poppel.
Poppel.
You know, one thing too, Robin, I've noticed they've rotated linebackers a lot for Nebraska, where we've seen Shavers and McGahee continue to take reps.
Early reps too. It's not like 2 drives and then rotate in the back. Like they're guys that are coming in playing key situational, like third downs. With I don't know if it's just a matter of trying to keep that top group fresh, or just the totality of the season. But they're rotating more, and they're doing it a lot earlier in games than they have.
And they're playing Javen Wright more snaps
Mhm.
now. His snaps, he's up to 27 now.
Mhm.
Remember when he first came back, it was more like 9 to 11. Javen Wright's up to 27.
Yeah, he
Bullock.
played the second most snaps of any linebacker.
Bullock scored very well
Mhm.
on Saturday. That was one of Bullock's higher scoring games, right? Pro Football Focus wise.
It's up there.
Yeah, he scored really well. The linebackers, I'd say they played pretty well as a group.
Yeah, I think they were the strongest unit of anyone or of any level of the defense. They rushed the passer. They had 5 of the 7 pressures, 4 of the 5 hits on the quarterback, and were able to just be disruptive against the run and pass.
They're huge. They're huge in this game. The front 7 generally is huge. Another guy to watch who played a little bit more is Keona Davis. Played 11 snaps in that game. His snaps were up. Guys like him are really valuable guys. Kai Wallen, his snaps were a little up.
14.
I'm looking at those guys because they are the future. I mean, Van Poppel, Wallen, Butler, Wilhite, I call him Wilhite, Davis, Keona Davis, future. Vincent Jackson, future.
Judy's back.
Judy.
Yep. Those guys got to be good.
Hey, here's some perspective. Nebraska played
Judy's huge.
10
You're right.
defensive linemen over 55 snaps for Wisconsin.
Yeah. Hey, we don't mention Judy enough, I don't think. Judy's become pretty formidable in that program.
All right. And if you're wondering, Jackson Stratton, not a runner, last week did not have any scramble yards at all. Had 2 design runs go for -3 yards.
God, it's a good matchup.
So there's
not
a
a bad
lot
matchup.
you like about this one. But when we come back, Abby Barmore will join us next. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, Abby Barmore, mailbag time. But before we get to that, again, we're brought to you by StayHome.Care. Learn more about StayHome.Care, the services they offer. They're there for you and the loved ones in your life at 402-205-2233. We're also brought to you by Tanner's Sports Bar and Grill. And look, it's holiday week. You're going to be around a lot of people at your house. Sometimes you just want to get out of your house. You want to watch football. You want to watch sports. There's no better place to go than Tanner's Bar and Grill. They'll have the Husker volleyball on all weekend. Even on their BTN Plus games, they get those games on. They'll have Husker basketball on.
Ooh, those
they'll have all the NFL, all the college games. And Tanner's has the best wings you're going to find in Lincoln and Omaha. I like the char-buffed wings at Tanner's. Homemade onion rings.
Okay.
You name it. I mean, these aren't the frozen out of the bag. I mean, these are hand-battered homemade onion. Hard to find at bars these days. Great burgers, chicken lips, tons of beers on tap. Check out Tanner's. Their Lincoln location is 30th and Yankee Hill Road. They have 3 locations in Omaha. Thanks again to Tanner's Sports Bar and Grill for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. Okay, Abby, mailbag time. Where are we going?
When will Nebraska know which bowl game they'll compete in?
Well, technically not until like December 8th.
Okay.
So the championship games are going to get played on the 7th.
The conference
Saturday.
championship games.
And then that day, the 8th, it will be official. But I think we'll have a pretty good idea one way or the other. And I said this in our opening segment. beat Iowa, probably Tampa. Lose to Iowa, probably Nashville. That's where I'm at today.
I'll take
Not a
either
bad
one of
situation.
those. Either one of them.
Pretty good situation
All
to be
day.
in. Yeah. Pretty good situation.
And what about New York? I think Michigan's going to go to New York. I think that's one to watch. They want to go there. They have alumni there. They make sense to go to the Yankee Bowl. I mean, the Yankees and Michigan go together like peas and carrots.
Oh, yeah.
Michigan doesn't want to have their coach dumped in mayonnaise in Charlotte.
Think Rule's going to get dumped in mayonnaise?
Yeah, that's the other one. The optics of Charlotte. I just can't imagine Rule would want to spend a week around the Panthers facility.
Yeah.
Or
Awkward.
the bowl. Do you think? I mean, the bowl wouldn't want that.
I don't know.
Probably
The Duke's Mayo Bowl Twitter account posted that Nebraska is officially eligible for the Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Let PJ Fleck get the mailbag.
Well, who's going to Detroit? I know it's sort of inconsequential.
Rutgers or Michigan State?
Okay.
Michigan State's got
Sean could be the bowl
so
ambassador.
Michigan State has to beat Rutgers.
Okay.
But that would make sense. The only negative about Detroit, you play a MAC team. So it's kind of not a great matchup. No. You're not no one
like on a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
No thanks.
I remember I watched that game last year.
Yeah,
we were bowling during Christmas break, and it was on a bowling alley. It's like a bowling alley bowl. You're just like, oh, the Detroit Bowl's on.
It's a Tuesday
Sean,
afternoon.
you're up. Hold on. I want to watch some 25-year-old play quarterback for Minnesota who came back to play. That's what happened last year. A guy that was going to get married rejoined the team.
It's true.
To play
It was
quarterback.
a storyline. It was a storyline. They kept showing his bride-to-be in the stands. Blah, blah, blah.
Next question.
Okay. Next one. Who among Nebraska's players could be drafted or get a free agency NFL opportunity?
Ty.
Nash and Ty?
Yeah. I mean, just listening to Matt Rule talk about Ty Robinson, holy moly. Like, he brought up some valid points, and you go through, he's got career marks across the board. Tackles, sacks, tackles for loss. He's blocked a kick. He has multiple pass breakups. Like, he's done everything for Nebraska's defensive line, and he has been the one constant for me that has brought it every single week. Now, has he been as dominant in some games as others? No, but he's always been good and sometimes a game changer.
Yeah. He's really athletic for someone that size, which is makes him the no-brainer in my opinion. Because he gets places. You see how he moves for that size. And what are we talking? 6'6", 320?
About.
And he gets places. He's pretty fast for a big man. He's not there's no character issues. Rule made a great point too. He could gain weight, he could lose weight, and he'd still be pretty good. 3-down guy. Yeah, it would be a miracle to me if he doesn't get drafted.
Well, and the other thing with this like all conference talk is that Nebraska being a bowl team is huge because guys that are on losing teams usually don't get a lot of attention.
Right.
But now that Nebraska is kind of back in the at least conversation as a winning team, and they can go to a bowl, like that might help his chances.
Go ahead. Sean.
On offense, I think, these are, to me, they're long shots. Ben Scott and Bryce Benhart. I mean, they're late round guys if they get drafted. I don't really see Jamal Banks or Naor. There's just too many receivers out there.
Right. No, I agree with you.
I mean, I don't see them as obviously draft guys. And
I agree with you. Some of it will be dependent on how their off seasons go. I mean, I'm talking about Ben Scott and Benhart primarily. Back to the defense. So Nash, I gotta think Nash would have a chance. I mean, just the picture that size. Those guys aren't everywhere. I mean, guys that are what we're gonna say 6'3", 300. Those guys aren't everywhere.
Tommy Hill, we're leaving him out, but
yeah,
he's going to play supposedly in the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, Field Yates had him as a first rounder. That was
a lot has happened since then.
Yeah. I think there's a lot now. The NFL people, when they do their audit,
he's not a first rounder.
Like comparing him to Cam Taylor-Britt, not even in this. I mean, not in the same category. Would you guys agree right now?
Agree.
100% agree. 100. Hey, I mean, Singleton, according to rules, raced up draft boards. Deshaun Singleton. I mean, you got to watch him. I mean, he's you know what he is? Big, physical, and fast. You have to watch that. When it's that combination, you have to watch it.
All right, next question.
What is key for Nebraska's defense to beat Iowa?
Limiting long runs from Caleb Johnson.
That's it. Explosive runs by Caleb Johnson.
Holding up against the run for 4 quarters. You cannot wear down in a cold, physical game and let them take that game over in the 4th quarter.
Patience in this game is going to be big because I'm just going to reiterate what Rule said. It's so true. I never thought of it this way. It's like the game starts in the second half for Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be patient.
They're trying to get your car off the road.
Yep.
They want it to be a football game in the ditch.
Yeah, and you driving a damn Camry, you're not going to get out.
I mean, they want it to be just an ugly game in the ditch.
Yep.
They don't want it to be pretty.
Right.
They don't want Dylan
Your
Raiola.
Honda Accord's just, it's nice in your driveway, but it ain't going to beat Iowa in that situation.
No, I mean, they're going to get Dylan Raiola dirty.
Yeah.
And they're going to hit him.
Yeah.
And they're going to blitz him.
Yep. He gets the ball out. He's getting the ball out quicker these days.
And this is where, Dana grew up 30 minutes from Iowa City.
I think he grew up in Mount Pleasant. That's what it says on Wiki.
That's where he was born.
Mm.
That's what it says on Wiki. We haven't even discussed him much. He's kind of the wild card in this game. I mean, he's got like Rule's got something in his back pocket. His name is Dana Holgerson,
Mm-hmm.
and that could be very beneficial.
Yep.
All right, final question.
Okay, last question. Last week, Nebraska played a lot of its rivals. Basketball played Creighton, a couple of Wisconsin games. So, which is your favorite Nebraska rivalry?
Those hands.
Well, the traditional one is Oklahoma. I mean, I think that's the historical rivalry of this program. And, it's hard for me to steer off that because of the history of that. And look, they've played recently, but today it's Iowa. I mean, I think Iowa to me is the rival of this program when you look at it now.
I can steer right off of Oklahoma to Colorado.
Mhm.
It's hot. That rivalry.
Oh, yeah.
Oklahoma, Sean, I agree. Huge rivalry. It was very tasteful rivalry. There was a lot of mutual respect. It was a classy rivalry. Nebraska, Colorado, not classy.
Mm-mm.
It's just throw the class out the window. It's hot. It's really hot. You can feel the heat. And I like that one better now. I'll take the
a
Colorado.
cultural clash.
Yeah, it is a cultural
Yeah.
clash. It's a clash in a lot of ways. And it manifests itself in some pretty ugly behavior by human beings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all time, the Colorado one was bigger than Oklahoma for me. Just like
'Cause you're
when
younger.
I became aware of the Nebraska football realm, Colorado was the bigger game because in the mid '90s, Oklahoma was Oklahoma. So that one is there. As far as the Big Ten is concerned, it's got to be Iowa. For hoops,
Oh,
it's Creighton.
hot.
It's Creighton, especially now that it's actually a competitive series again, where it's not just one team blowing the other team out by 30.
I heard
It's hot.
for Colorado, Nebraska. I heard a nickname for it. I saw going in the game. It was farmers versus frat boys.
It's hot too. I mean, people care about it.
Mhm.
My friends, my family, they care about that.
The Creighton one.
Yes, they do. I mean, it's interesting.
No, it was our intern Carter
Oh boy,
had a
Big horse.
beer dumped on him after the game
is that right?
Just
Is that right?
by like
Yeah.
a 50-some-year-old.
Yeah.
Carter's from Omaha. He grew up in Omaha.
Because Carter was.
I don't know.
And
We didn't hear exactly what led to the beer dumping, just that a beer ended up on his head, and the guy that dumped it got escorted out by security with his kid watching. So, real fun picture there.
Hot rivalry.
I'm sure Carter was just totally innocent, had nothing to encourage that behavior.
The level of trolling for that win over Creighton was next level. As far as Nebraska's official,
Yeah.
usually the official brand is not going to get into that kind of stuff, but
They did.
the
What did
glove
they do?
came
What's
off.
an
They
example?
emptied the clip.
What was an example?
They said starting route to Memorial Stadium and did a map from CHI to Memorial Stadium.
See you guys tomorrow.
That's
Yeah.
pretty good.
That was that the earliest ever that game's been played?
Not, I don't know about ever, but usually it's in December.
Yeah.
Like it's been in December more often than not.
All right. When we come back, we'll close the show. We'll talk some Big Ten Week 14. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Final segment of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. Again, we're brought to you by our title sponsor of the show, StayHome.Care. They're there for you and the loved ones in your life, helping with all the simple daily tasks you might need. It's never too early to call StayHome.Care to learn more about their services at 402-205-2233. We're also brought to you by who, Steve Sipple?
Well, Larson Motors. Let's sell some cars. I mean, does that sound like an idea?
Black Friday week.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a new vehicle, how about going for a new experience in Nebraska City at Larson Motors? Larson Motors is one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all the major brands in one locale. Finding your new Chevrolet, GMC, Hummer, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. How about a Ram truck, Rob?
I need a new car.
There you go.
Light duty trucks.
Ram's not very light duty. Anyways, it's never been easier. So start your new experience today
There's that Colorado.
At LarsonMotorGroup.com, LarsonMotorGroup.com, or at Larson Motors in lovely Nebraska City. Larson Motors, real people,
Real
deals.
real.
All right, let's talk week 13 first. You had some wildness. Illinois storms back to beat Rutgers 38-31. The Illini are at 8-3, staring at 9 wins if they beat Northwestern. Ohio State in the big game. Indiana drove down to start the game to jump up, but Ohio State dominated the rest of the way, 38-15. Iowa 29-13 winners over Maryland. Michigan 50-6 over Northwestern. That got the Wolverines bowl eligible. They'll play Ohio State this week, as we know. Then Penn State hangs on to win at Minnesota 26-25. We thought that would be a tough game. USC in the late night special on NBC won 19-13 over UCLA. The Bruins had a lead, and the Trojans stormed back in the fourth quarter. And then Michigan State on Friday night holds off 1-10 Purdue. What jumped out to you guys? Obviously, the Indiana game. I think the Hoosiers are probably still in the playoff, but the SEC really helped their cause to get in with the weekend they had.
Yeah, SEC had a lot of setbacks. Ohio State's flex was impressive. Ohio State being Ohio State. Indiana, Rob, Curtis Rourke, I watched the Michigan game. It looks like as these games have escalated in importance and difficulty, Rourke has backed off a little bit. His numbers weren't much in this game.
8 of 18 for 68 yards.
Sean, 8 of 18 for 68.
No
I
TDs,
saw it
no
against
picks.
Michigan. He didn't look he didn't look like the confident Rourke that we saw. Rob, these games are a lot. I mean, this is the pressure mounts. And when you're playing Michigan and Ohio State, even a down Michigan, it's, hey, I'm going to tell you something. Down Michigan isn't down in their defensive front, okay? You ever heard of Frank Graham? They have a couple, if not 3 NFL guys on that line. So, and then the other thing that jumps out is UCLA losing to USC. UCLA, 3 unsportsmanlike penalty flags, I believe, at the end of the first half. Quasi Gilmore was going into the locker room. Somebody pushed him apparently. He got flagged. The coach got flagged. Anyway, they kicked off from their 5-yard line to start the second half. They kicked off from their 5. USC returned at 41 yards, didn't get in, but it kind of set the tone. How often have you seen a team kick off from its 5?
Never.
The guys on the run down the field started at the goal line.
Was it the Texas game when Michael Crabtree and they beat Texas that year, and there was a bunch of penalties on Texas.
Yeah.
And Texas had a kick off from like the 15.
Yeah. This was the 5.
You're not going to see a crazier game or crazier finish than Illinois Rutgers. 40-yard touchdown pass.
Pat Bryant.
Walk off. Like, that was an insane ending. And man,
Wasn't that a 4th down?
I think so.
Was it tied or was it 31-30?
They were down 1.
Down 1. Huge play to Pat Bryant. Pat Bryant just ran by a bunch of guys into the end zone. It was Pat Bryant.
So credit Illinois, man. They just find ways. They find ways, and they're 8-3.
They're going to get to 9-3. Now that is a coaching job, because you saw Illinois. They didn't look. They're not much better than Nebraska if they're better at all.
No, Nebraska should have won.
And we have 10 Big Ten games this weekend because there's 2 non-conference games in the mix.
Yeah.
So Fresno State plays UCLA.
Oh yeah.
In a meaningless game for UCLA. They're out of bowl eligibility. USC hosts Notre Dame. That's a huge game on Saturday. We'll be driving back from Iowa at that point. But go through the full weekend here. Minnesota at Wisconsin. That's the 11 a.m. Black Friday game. Nebraska's the night game on Black Friday against Iowa, 6:30 NBC. Then on Saturday, you got 2 11 a.m. games. Illinois at Northwestern. That's for 9 wins. It's at Wrigley Field. Michigan at Ohio State. That's the big noon kickoff. I mentioned that UCLA game against Fresno is a 2:30 game. Maryland hosts Penn State. Big game for Penn State just to solidify their playoff position. Notre Dame, USC. I could see the Trojans pulling the upset. It wouldn't surprise me. Then you got Rutgers and Michigan State. That's a big game for Michigan State. They're at 5 wins.
Oh, yeah.
And they want to get to 6 so they can get to that bowling alley bowl game in Detroit.
Yeah. Maybe Sean can catch it again at
It
Parkway
wasn't even
Lane.
true bowling. We were playing Wonder Bowl. You know what that is, Robin? Like the small balls.
Oh yeah.
Was that because your daughters were involved?
Yeah. at Wonder Bowl on winter break.
Yeah.
Purdue, Indiana.
Okay.
That's a big game for Indiana.
It
They
is.
look good. 29-point line, and then Washington, Oregon.
Jeez.
That's another one to watch.
Yeah.
Just because Oregon's obviously trying to solidify their spot, but it's setting up, guys, for Oregon, Ohio State for the Big Ten title and the bye.
Rematch. Oregon won the first one by 1, I believe. I'm going to say 32-31 off the top of my head. And that'll be an epic rematch.
There's a thought out there, Robin. Our friend Mick from Big Red Wrap Up, the producer, Mick Lewis.
Mick.
He said you're almost better off being the 5 seed. He goes, if you're Ohio State, you want to be the 5 seed, play Boise, then you play the Big 12 champion in your next playoff game. And
I like that draw.
You have a better draw to the semis than maybe being the true 1 seed.
And you know what? Who's going to be the Big 12 champion? Who knows on that?
Boys,
take your pick.
Yeah.
So the Big 12 champion in the group of 5 are going to be the 12 and the 4. Like those will be like the group of 5 between those two teams, because Boise could be the 4 or the 12.
Yeah.
The Big 12 champion could be the 4 or the 12.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're the 5 and you're in a really good position.
Would you say, and I'm thinking out loud, a flaw in the system kind of is that the Big 12 would get a first round bye?
Well, Boise might get it over.
But I'm saying if the Big 12 does, I mean, what are we talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And they're getting a first round bye.
It would take their champion to jump Boise in the poll.
Yeah, I regard it as a flaw in the system. I mean, that's not apologies
I get
to the Big 12
intent of it. It's to reward a conference champion.
I get that.
Even if the conferences aren't
Right.
necessarily apples to apples. But that Wisconsin-Minnesota game to start Black Friday, huge game for Wisconsin.
Bowl eligibility.
Bowl eligibility. And like after this last one, it seems like the wheels are kind of starting to wobble a little bit.
Yeah.
Going back to the car analogy, like,
Yeah.
and if they lose to their rival, the Paul Bunyan game,
Yeah.
to finish sub 500 and not go to a bowl game,
Not good.
look out.
Oh,
Long
PJ
offseason.
Fleck will
Look
take
out.
that axe and walk around with that sucker
If they win.
before he gets his mayonnaise bath.
Oh, PJ Fleck, you're right. I was thinking Fickle. I got Fickle on my mind. Fickle needs a win. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
God dang it. I mean, it's just football season never fails to deliver, even right up to the end. And then we'll have a playoff. That'll be wonderful. We're going to go cover a bowl. How about that?
We
We're
get
gonna go
one
let's
more
go.
month of football. How about that?
Let's
I know
go.
we get to cover bowl practices. We got to have a plan. I mean, I haven't. we
I
haven't done that
forgot
in
how to
so
do
long.
this.
I'll have a plan.
Okay.
All right. Well, make sure you stay with HuskerOnline. We'll have complete post-game coverage for you from Iowa City. It is a night game, so we're going to be on late 11:30 or midnight-ish for HuskerOnline post-game live. For Robin Washett and Steve Sipple, I'm Sean Callahan.